Hello everybody, I'm Netzer, the chairman of the Israeli FinTech Association and the founding partner of Equitech Group. Today I want to talk to you about the future of FinTech. But before that, a few words about the Israeli FinTech Association. Our association was established back in 2014 when we were hosting our first event in a small bar in Tel Aviv. We had 40 participants, but since then we had 50 FinTech events held in this auditorium at Rise TLV. We have more than 700 FinTech startups as part of our community in Israel. Actually, it's close to 800 almost that are taking part in our community. We have more than 100 global speakers hosted here on this stage, talked about different FinTech topics, and we currently have more than 8,000 members in our list. That makes us one of the biggest FinTech communities in the world and led us to establish the Israeli FinTech Association. A few words about FinTech. Some may say that FinTech is not a one definition. FinTech is composed of many sub-verticals. One of them is obviously payments, but it's not just that. Everything that's related to big data, AI, machine learning that supports the financial industry, any risk assessment mechanism or credit scoring mechanism that supports the financial industry, any blockchain solution, any authentication, anti-fraud, cybersecurity, identity theft, identity management, etc., that supports the financial industry are considered to be FinTech as well. Wealth management solutions, robo-advisors from all kinds, capital market solutions, trading platforms, of course, lending platforms, even InsurTech that are serving the insurance industry are part of the FinTech segment. And of course, anything that's related to financial planning, financial education is part of it as well. With the years, we understood that FinTech is actually an expanding definition, and it can be composed from many sub-segments. But eventually, FinTech is any solution that can serve the financial industry or the end client of the financial industry, if it's banking clients, insurance clients, credit card bureaus, their end clients, etc. And any client that can benefit all kind of solution, it means that that solution is a FinTech solution. And I want to focus a bit about the Israeli FinTech industry, because here in Israel, we are a source for many FinTech innovations from all kinds, from the variety of sub-segments I just mentioned. Very interesting fact about the Israeli FinTech ecosystem, we are ranked second in the world in investments invested in FinTech startups. First in the world is UK, and third is the US market. The fourth, by the way, is Singapore, so we're in a very good environment. Another interesting piece of information, 73% out of total investments in Israel are coming from multinationals, global multinationals, and global investors. So it means that Israel is not a capital market at all. It's a tech market. We are a tech powerhouse. We're manufacturing technologies, but investments are coming from elsewhere. More than $3 billion were invested in Israeli FinTech since 2017. And we have witnessed a tremendous amount of capital that is finding its ways in Israeli FinTech investments and finding the right solutions to invest in. We are involved in several deals and in many integrations or implementations of FinTech startups in financial institutions around the globe. So I mentioned that there are more than 700 startups, 750 startups that are operating in Israel, and we have to say that 90% of these startups, 90, are selling their products elsewhere, exporting their products. So it means that Israel is not considered to be a market, not at all. With hardly 9 million citizens, Israel is not a market, but again, is a tech house to export the solutions elsewhere. And this is our unique role. In our positioning as the Israeli FinTech Association, we help these startups to export their solutions. Just to show you a glimpse about the Israeli investments in FinTech. This chart will show us the investments that were made in Israeli high-tech in general. We can see in this chart that almost $8.5 billion were invested in Israeli high-tech in general during 2019. With that, we can see that in Israeli FinTech, we have almost $2 billion invested in 2019. This is a very impressive number, and it actually means that more than 20% than the Israeli high-tech investments were made in FinTech. I want to take a closer look at this chart and just try to see the number of investments that were invested in Israeli high-tech in general. 568 deals, and the average round was almost $15 million. With that, take a look at the FinTech chart. We had 64 deals and with an average round of almost $30 million. That means that the maturity of startups, the maturity of FinTech startups in Israel, comparing to the general high-tech segment, is very good. So eventually, through the years, in terms of 5 to 6 years, we see these startups getting more mature, tracking more and more funding, and we can see the uplift since 2017. If in 2017 we had $394 million, a bit more, invested in 72 startups, and in 2018 we had $837 million invested in 92 startups, we see the maturity of the segment with almost $2 billion invested in 2019, but only in 64 deals. Each deal and each startup track more capital. So what are the sub-segments of FinTech that are known and working in Israel? We see the trading and investing and the payment spaces in the lead. Trading and AI-based trading. It's not just the algo trading that we used to know from back in the days. It's machine learning-based and neural network-based solutions that allows seamless trading, that allows trading in a best way, that allows outperforming the market. And of course, payment solutions from all kinds, and they as well serve the financial industry and the end client next to all kinds of enterprise solutions, anti-fraud, risk assessment, and compliance solutions, along with InsurTech solutions. We see 11% there, and we definitely see that InsurTech during 2020 is going to be on the rise. So just to summarize the global presence of global multinationals in Israel, we can see a tremendous hype and tremendous trend. Israeli FinTech is bringing to Israel the biggest players in the world. And this is what we're currently doing. In the Israeli FinTech Association, we call all the global financial institutions. The ones who don't have global presence here in Israel, we're happy to represent you. And the ones who do have global presence here, we're happy to help you to scout for the right solution for you. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, because we see many global financial institutions penetrating Israel and coming to Israel with time. And it happens exponentially, faster and faster through the years. And if we'll try to shift the discussion to the future of FinTech and where we're heading. So I prepared a few slides just to show you where we currently are and where we're planning to go with it. So first of all, as part of future of FinTech, we see banking services presented by GAFA and many others. We tend to believe that different players in the industry, not necessarily banks, are going to be banks, challenger banks, non-official banks, and even service providers for all kinds of solutions. And it's not just payments. Take a look at Facebook move with Libra. So this is a cryptocurrency presented by Facebook, and this is not the only commercial company that presented its cryptocurrency, along to Boeing and many others. Google Pay, Apple Pay, even Amazon that penetrating this game, they're all considered to be challenger banks in a way. So the future of fintech relies in the fact that it's not just your bank that's going to be your banking partners, it's also the companies that you're already working with and you used to have a very close interaction on a daily basis with, they're going to serve you financially as well. The other point I want to touch is less branches, less bricks and mortar, and of course, more digital payments. We see different digital banks such as N26, such as Revolut, and many others, and here's the list, and we can take a look and get a first-hand impression by the huge movement that is done by Challenger Bank. It's much easier to get your license to be a Challenger Bank. It's much easier to serve end clients according to the new regulations, and we'll touch the regulations in the next slide. But what's most important to understand is that tracking the clients, tracking the millennials, the X generation, the ones who will soon be the Z generation, to receive different banking services from different entities, which are not necessarily banks, is becoming more and more common. In this aspect, I also want to add that penetrating to new market as a challenger bank is easier than in the days in the past. It's much easier to have a penetration model which is based on a cost per acquisition and not necessarily on the expensive real estate. That's how different banks and different challenger banks and players around the globe are penetrating different markets without the need to have an expensive real estate, expensive physical branches, and without the need to invest fortune to secure a new market. Next point I want to touch is the caching on blockchain. Blockchain is definitely booming. We saw that blockchain is a sub-segment of fintech, and we saw that blockchain is a huge enabler. Now, for this discussion, I want to separate completely from blockchain to cryptos. And when I talk about blockchain infrastructure, I want to talk only about the ability of the infrastructure of blockchain to enable banks, financial institutions, and payment providers to wire transfer payments in a better way or to support the financial industry and to increase efficiency. Cryptocurrencies at the current are out of this discussion, but we see blockchain-based payments. We see Ethereum, we see EOS, and different providers and different solutions that are currently built that allows faster transactions, much more transactions per second. So also efficiency and speed of wire, which is super important in this space. We see this sub-segment, we see it now booming, and we expect it to have a huge increase during 2020. So the blockchain segment is definitely on the rise, is a very promising sub-segment of fintech, and we should definitely take a closer look in it. I was speaking about regulations, about the easiness in receiving a banking license. So all the regulations and the compliance, or how we used to call it RegTech, is much more common in these days, and in 2020 is going to definitely have a leap. We see the GDPR, PSD2, open banking regulation, also the AML updates in the US market. They're all changing. They're all much more welcoming different tech solutions. If in the past, we used to see different tier 1, tier 2 banks that are developing solutions in-house, now the trend is to open the doors and welcome different technologies to integrate them and to implement them for the usage of the end clients or for the usage of banks and financial institutions. It's not just that. We see different corporate innovation programs of different tier 1 banks that are held especially in order to develop fintech solutions on request. So, for serving the demand of financial institutions, of global financial institutions, these corporate venture capital are working very hard, sometimes together with us, with the Israeli FinTech Association and with our group, to structure a cohesive program to allow the development of different solutions and also to integrate them and to go live fast. So their purpose is not just going live fast, is not just manufacturing fintech solutions on demand. The purpose is actually to keep up the pace and to stay relevant, to keep the competition running, and of course, to overcome the challenges and the competitors. The last point I want to address is the biometrics to make a splash. Biometrics is very important for the end user. We see it in all kinds of banking apps. Now we're able to open our iPhone by a face recognition component. We're able to open our banking app with a fingerprint or again with face recognition. And we're able to do all kinds of activities and operations by only being ourselves. We don't need to hit a very complicated PIN code. We don't need to remember anymore long numbers. We just need to be present. This is a part of, again, the future of FinTech as we see much more smooth activity towards receiving financial services. So if I'm an end client of a bank and I want to consume as many services as I can, I want it to be easy, both the onboarding as a new client for the bank and the services consumption as an end client of the bank. So if we're talking about the onboarding process, imagine yourself that instead of going to the physical branch for the teller to recognize me and to confirm and validate that this is me with my ID, I can do the same by a face recognition component that is operating as part of the bank's app. I can take a video selfie of myself for the liveness check, then take a photo of my ID. The mechanism at the back end can compare these two, and I don't need to go to the branch anymore and to meet a teller and to meet a human being in order to validate and confirm that me is me. So the authentication process is becoming much easier now. That's why biometrics will make a huge difference in 2020 in FinTech. To conclude the future of FinTech, of course, we believe that we will see less human interference. We believe that we will see less branches. We believe that we will hardly talk to a teller or to a banker. But eventually we should remember, as a human being, the human interaction is important. When I want to feel that someone is pampering me or taking care of me, especially if this is my very important financial state, I want to take a closer look at the numbers with someone who will be there for me, who will explain the difficult things, and who can take me through the numbers and give me comfort. So, we believe that bankers will not disappear. Of course, I will have much more smooth experience, and I will be in a seamless environment, but eventually, for the most complicated tasks, I will probably want to see a banker. To conclude this session, our company is delivering all kinds of services to financial institutions and to startups as well. We are experts in delivering the top-notch technologies to financial institutions and in supporting different technological solutions in their way to find for the next client or banking partner. So if you're looking for a FinTech solution, if you're looking to penetrate to different markets with your FinTech solution, please contact me. My credentials and email are in here, and I'd be happy to see how can I help you. Thank you very much.